Mr. Jericho. Can I call you Chris?
Please do.
Yeah, I've got to say, yeah, I've been following your career since your move from WCW to WWE, and so uh,
Cool. Thank you.
big admirer. And my daughter to this day will not utter the name Kevin Owens for what he did to you. And but yeah, so tell me
Absolutely.
about the Death Tour. Yeah, what I have a lot of questions about it, but what is the
Well, ask me one.
give me a quick summary of the documentary, and then I'll get into it.
Well, I mean, you've seen it, there's so much to tell of what this movie is, I mean, there's such a legendary status behind the Tony Candelo Death Tours, that, if you're an independent wrestler and just starting out, in Canada, even in the States, you hear about it and you want to be a part of it. Is it as hard as people have said, and is it as, beneficial as people say? So we wanted to capture that on film because I think a lot of people, when you watch pro wrestling, think that you instantly just get to the top fairly easy, but there's so many dues that you have to pay. And being on this death tour, as we call it in the business, physically, mentally, it's very taxing, it's very grueling, it's very difficult. And I think we wanted to kind of capture that part of the tour, but also how much it means to be on it, both for the people in the ring and the people that you're entertaining in these northern reservations that don't have a lot of positivity, and bringing that positivity to those towns is something else that we wanted to capture in the documentary.
Yeah, I mean, you're answering part of the question that I was going to ask, but ultimately the question is why? Why would anyone want to go on this tour? Uh, and I think from the documentary I got, certainly professional reasons to do the tour, but there seems to be altruistic reasons as well.
Well, I mean, once again, when you're first starting out, you want to work. And, it's hard to find gigs when you're an independent wrestler and don't have a lot of name value and don't have a lot of experience. So if you can get on one of these tours, why would you want to do it? Well, because A, you want to be on it, you want to work, you want the reps, there's so many matches in a short period of time, you want the experience. And it is very difficult to actually be on it and travel 16 hours, over frozen tundra to get from one reservation to the other. But like I said, it's a badge of honor if you can do it. And I think there's a lot of excitement to be involved in one. And it might suck when you're actually on it. And it does in a lot of ways. You're traveling, then you get to the town, then you have to go to the gymnasium and set up the ring and then do your match and then take the ring down and then sleep on the floor of the gymnasium and buy a peanut butter sandwich for $30 and a bottle of water for $20. And I mean, it's not easy to do, but when you're done and looking back on it, for me, being at the top of the wrestling world, it was a very valuable experience. And for others that do these tours that never wrestle again, it's a chance that you had to live your dream. You got to be a superhero for a few weeks, and the people in the crowd, the kids in the crowd, get to see a real life superhero. They get to see their version of Chris Jericho or John Cena or whatever it may be, because in the town at that night, here it is. It's live, it's person, it's right in your backyard. And that makes it a very special experience.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that stuck out to me was, you're going into the northern Canadian reservations, and the way it's kind of portrayed is that it reminds me a lot of kind of the Rust Belt here in America, the flyover states, where it's a town that feels like they're slowly dying, and that the kids growing up in these, their goal is to either get out or somehow survive as an adult, because they're put under pressure of addictions, whether it be drugs, alcohol, or whatever. I mean, is that the sense you get? And what is it about the tours that kind of brings light to those situations?
Well, once again, these are dark places to be up in the northern reservations. And that's something, you set out to film one aspect of the movie, and then you realize there's such another story there. I think that's why the film is so emotional and really is unforgettable, because once again, there's a lot of darkness in these places, and you can bring some light there with a wrestling show. And that's the real, the heaviness of it, shall we say. And that's where you as a professional, but as a person, you realize how important it is for people to have something to look forward to and have something to believe in, you know. And wrestling can do that because, like I mentioned, I mean, there's not a lot going on in these places. You know, there's no, you know, band, there's no Metallica coming to town. It's Tony Candelo's wrestling show, but that's huge, you know. And I think for the people in the crowd, the kids in the crowd, it gives them inspiration and motivation to know that, like, hey, you know, there's more out there than just this, you know, city that we live in, this little town that we live in. You can actually do more than that and break free and go to the next step. And I think everybody needs that in their life.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of back in my Christian high school days, these missionary trips we'd go on.
Mm.
I mean, who is Tony Candelo, and is that kind of his approach to doing the tour at all?
Tony's a legend, you know, and that's another part of this that we wanted to tell and give Tony some props of just how influential and important he is and was to Canadian wrestling. I mean, there's so many Canadians that are in main events of wrestling shows to this day that did Tony Candelo tours. You know, I can speak from my experience. I worked for Tony many times, not just on the Death Tour, but all across Canada. And you know, none of us ever got rich working for Tony, but we got rich in experience. And you know, when you're starting out, you don't have a lot of options of where you can go and where you can wrestle. It's not like you have a weekly gig. You go where the promoters will book you, and Tony always gave us a shot, you know. And I think that's something else that we wanted to tell is just this guy putting on these tours. Tony's the promoter of the Death Tours for decades.
Yeah.
Why does he do it every year? Well, it gives him something to believe in and something to look forward to, you know, on an annual basis. And you see him in the movie, you know, he doesn't even wear a jacket anymore. He's so used to being fucking minus 30. He's wearing a jacket with no gloves and no toque and no scarf. He's just smoking cigarettes and
Yeah.
walking through the snow to ask the truck driver why he's stuck, you know, in the
Yeah.
ditch. And he's like, well, what are you stuck
Well,
in the ditch for?
yeah,
You
I'm
know,
curious because he could easily not go into this area because certainly there has to be easier areas to do a wrestling tour.
well, once again, you go, you know, you go where the show is wanted, and these, you know, and the chief of the tribes of the reservations book these shows.
Mhm.
You know, we live in a world in 2023 when you're like, oh, we're so modern, but there's still, you know, First Nation chiefs that run the reservations,
Mhm.
and those are the ones that bring in the matches and the shows. So why do you do them and why do you go there? Because they're going to pay you to be there, and they realize how important it is for these shows to come to town because it gives the people in the community something to do and something to believe in and something to look forward to, and that's important. Everybody needs that.
Yeah. Now you had done this a while ago. Has much changed over the years, or is it pretty much the same? The way the tour is run and the impact the tour has on the community.
Well, you know, the one I did was almost prior to my wrestling career even starting. And I was always lucky that I was booked, you know, in other places where I didn't have to do the death tours. But from all my friends doing them, and for the one that I did, which was actually in the summer, which was another experience, but still the same idea. Um, you know, you value this because it's a great way to cut your teeth and a great way, like I said, to prove to yourself that you want to be in the business because you have to commit. It's not easy to be on one of these tours. But what's the benefit? You know, what's the value of it? You know, no one's getting rich on this, but from an experience standpoint, it's something you'll never forget. And that's important to have those moments in your life. You go, man, I remember 20 years ago, I wanted to be a wrestler. And for those 3 weeks, I was a wrestler. Now I'm a accountant, but for, you know, I've got a picture right here of me doing this tour up in northern Manitoba. And some kid might go, hey, I saw wrestling when I was a kid. Here's the picture I took with the wrestler. You know, it all kind of resonates in something that's very valuable and very you know, it's a great memory for you on both sides of the coin. And that's why you want to do that and why you still want to be involved with these tours.
Okay, let me ask you one wrestling question. We are a indie film outlet. We speak to indie filmmakers. And I always tell writers and directors that if you want a good story, if you want examples of good storytelling and bad storytelling, watch wrestling.
Right.
Because right away you have to establish an antagonist, a protagonist, and a conflict right away. Am I crazy in thinking that?
No, I mean wrestling's all storytelling. It really is. I mean the matches are fine, but what are the reasons that these matches are happening?
Yeah,
Especially when you're doing weekly shows. I mean, it's episodic television. You want to tell this tale, every week that builds to these big matches, and that's what really connects with people and hooks them is the stories. And whether you're doing it at the highest of levels or whether you're doing it, at the independent level, it's still the most important thing is the stories that you're telling.
yeah, absolutely. It's all about connecting with your audience.
It is. That's right. It is. If you can connect with your audience, you'll always have a gig.
Yeah, they'll come back. All right. Well, thank you very much. The Death Tour is going to Slam Dance. Congratulations. And
Thanks, man. Yeah, we're excited about that for sure. It's a
absolutely.
huge deal.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Awesome, man.